Welcome to Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda. I'm Nick Park, and over the last couple of days I've been talking in our Take 5s about how we deal with conflict in the church when we have disagreement or fall out with somebody in the church. And let me stress, this does happen in church. Sometimes we think, but church, we should all be so lovely to each other, we never fall out. I remember growing up, who I fell out with more than anybody else? It was my brothers. We were 4 brothers growing up in the house because we were close. We would fall out and fight. And in fact, to this day, I believe I've got a good marriage. I think I've got a very good marriage. I hope my wife Janice would stay the same. We love being married to each other. We love doing life together. But I will say this, that sometimes we argue. In fact, I probably argue with Janice more than I do with anybody else on planet Earth. Now, I don't argue with people a lot, so most people, I'd say, I'd be really hard-pressed to find anyone where I've argued with them more than once in the last 6 months. Seriously. And so the fact is that Janice and I, we're not arguing all the time. We're not always getting in each other's face or anything, but occasionally we do see things differently and we have to argue and we have to sort it out, and then we make up, and that's nice as well. But what I'm saying is this: the fact that conflict occurs in the church is sometimes because you are getting closer together, and that stirs up more intense feelings, and it makes sometimes when you disagree a little bit more difficult to deal with and work through, but it's well worth it. Now, one of the things that we need to recognize as well about this is that if you are in a church with many different kinds of people, it's sometimes easier to have misunderstandings. When we come from different cultures and different backgrounds, the more that we differ from each other in our backgrounds and cultures and all, the easier it is that we will quite unwittingly misunderstand something that somebody else is trying to do. I remember one time years ago, I had this idea for the church. We were working on renovating the church building, and I wanted to stress how the Word of God was at the center of all that we would be as a church. And I said, we want to be grounded on the Word of God. So I said, hey church, I've had a great idea. Why don't we, when we're laying this bit of concrete at the floor at the front, we get a copy of the Bible and bury the Bible in the concrete. So we're saying the Bible is our foundation, so that we're standing on the Bible. And I thought this was a great idea. And there was quite a lot of people. They got excited and they went, yeah, that's a brilliant idea. Let's do that. But then I had some people in our church from another country, and they came to me afterwards and said, we're leaving the church. And I'm like, what? Why? I thought you were happy here. They said, well, we were until you said that about burying the Bible. And I said, well, please tell me, what's the problem? Now, they explained to me that in their culture, when somebody turns from one thing to embrace something else, belief-wise, they take something that represents their old beliefs and bury it in the ground to say that they despise it and it's done with. So if they were turning from witchcraft, for example, to become a Christian, they might take the books of spells or whatever else, or occultic articles, and bury them down in the ground. And so for them to bury a Bible in the ground was absolute blasphemy, and saying they were abandoning the Bible. It was just a cultural difference, and I hadn't realized this. I hadn't done my homework to find out how this would affect other people. Now, needless to say, we sorted that out, and we never did bury a Bible in the concrete of the floor. But I'm stressing that to say that really, when you have people that are made up from different backgrounds, then sometimes it is easier to have disagreements in the church. But that's not a bad thing, because the more that we can deal with disagreements and deal with them in a Christ-like way, the closer God brings us together as iron sharpens iron. And so, in fact, if you're in a church with lots of other people, in fact, you think, I wish everybody was like me and my age and my background and my way of thinking, and then life would be easier. Well, it might be easier, but you wouldn't become the person the Lord wants you to be. And one of the beauties of church is God brings us together, different ages, different social backgrounds, different levels of education, different occupations, different nationalities, everything else. And God brings us together to reveal His glory, and that means, yeah, we're different, but you know what that just means? That means that when we have those extra obstacles to overcome, you need a bit more of the grace of God. And a church that's realizes their need of the grace of God is a church that God's going to use. May God bless you today, and may God use you in your interactions with your fellow Christians and in your service for the Lord. And join us again tomorrow for another Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda.